Caddis Maximus here, this time with a review of the older Bostitch D16 BoxLok, B-O-X-L-O-K, and this would be a cardboard box or carton stapler, known as a blind stapler. Bostitch really has been I would have to say, an institution in box staplers for many decades. They were one of the companies that really you'll find with tools that some companies really find a product that they really want to, get behind and be their kind of a namesake product, such as a Sawzall for Milwaukee or a Worm Dry Skill Saw for the Skill Corporation, part of Bosch. The box staplers and heavy-duty commercial staplers were one of those things for Bostitch. Bostitch, being that, still makes these today. Although anywhere where you see commercial box stapling, they're either going to be pneumatic or cordless, or will be some type of stationary machine if you're stapling a lot of boxes that are of a particular dimension. But they're all kind of expensive, and the nice thing about having a manual box stapler is that you don't need any power supply, you don't need any batteries, and of course the satisfaction of operating an entirely mechanically operated device. So this is, I think I mentioned earlier, a D16. I think this one was probably made in the 80s. Now these devices are actually, it's reasonably lightweight. I have to say it weighs, about 5 pounds. They are pretty large, and that's because it needs a great deal of motion in order to activate these claws that pinch into the box and then drive and fold over the staple. This will take 7/16 inch tall staples, or about 11 millimeters, 3/3 of an inch, or 19 millimeters, which will cover double and triple wall cardboard boxes and pretty much all your heavy duty stapling needs. You can use this to blind staple anything. Obviously, plastics have to be pretty soft and thin to be able to staple them because the claws won't be able to pinch through. And any harder surfaces, it just depends on either getting the claws to pinch through or being able to have it drive the staple through without the surface deflecting or kind of tearing apart. Let's take a look at these staplers and how we load this first. Loading this is actually pretty nice and easy. It's the same system they use on them now, but except for the levers off. There's a lever off to the side, left-hand side, rather than this finger loop. And I do like the finger loop a little bit better. And it's really easy because you just pull it and wrap it around, and it just makes it super simple. Here are the staples. I think we have some 5/8 inch staples in here, and yeah, these are just the big heavy duty. These are copper plated steel staples, and the copper plating is actually so that they don't rust in the side of the box, or it helps reduce it. Once the copper oxidizes, then they will rust, but it helps reduce the chances of rusting. You can see just a little bit of corrosion happening on some of the staples here. Otherwise, they're just normal steel staples, and they're super easy to load. You just slide them right in there. One thing that you don't want to do on any of these kind of more industrial staplers is when you get the slider in, just allow it to slam all the way down at full speed. Don't just let it go, because it'll break apart the staples. They're all glued together, and it tends to want to jam more. Let's take a look at the operation. This does have a manual depth adjustment. More modern ones just have a little twist dial, like on the cordless ones. It's pretty convenient. This one you do have to loosen an Allen screw, and that's essentially how you adjust for wall thickness. And how that works is that, or how this works, first we'll do a staple. When you get into it, you just put it flat against the box, and you have to have some rigidity. That's why it's not for thin-walled boxes, because it has these two claws that come down each side. Actually, let's get a fixed focus here. There we go. Two claws that come down on each side. Let me get this out of the way. It shaves off a staple. The staple hits those little hemispheres. You have to give it a little bit of force, and then it folds over. So what the depth is doing is adjusting how far down this anvil, or how close this anvil is to these teeth. So you can adjust it so that it can hold nice and tight, but won't fold over too soon and just cut through the cardboard, but won't be loose either if you have thin wall stuff. And that's exactly how this works. And then you end up with your simple box staple. And it's a surprising reliable design. You just have to be careful not to accidentally, obviously it doesn't like to be dropped. And it is pretty easy if you accidentally hit, you generally try not to set it you know, on concrete or something like that, because it's pretty easy to bump the handle and cause those claws to get dinged up, bent, and nicked. Even though they're made out of a very strong steel, you have to be careful with them. And it kind of falls apart when I take off the front cover. But inside, if we'll zoom in just a little bit here, we have two things. This black plate right here is actually the sheet metal plate that hits the back of the staple and pushes it through. And let me get a flashlight. Here we are. So in the back, there's a big metal block you can see. And what that metal block does is drives those two arms, and those arms are held into this block. So when you move the block up and down, it adjusts how far out the claws are. And then, so simultaneously, it's pushing out the claws and shaving off a staple. And so it's just a simple and basic mechanism, and it's actually really reliable. And let's do a quick little demonstration. We'll use the back of this box, and if this was just a normal box, you just take it. You kind of want to hold it pretty tight, and just pushes it through. And so you can always know the distinctive markings, because there are these two holes from where the claws punch in and have to go under the layer of cardboard to staple it. So this is pretty thin wall, and we can see that the staple is actually pretty loose in there. Obviously, it has a big fold, so it's adjusted for cardboard boxes, but that's what you would want to do, is just make sure that the staple isn't too loose. These can be operated plenty fast, because you can just put it on the box and just staple, staple, staple. It has a nice handle and a great amount of leverage, so you're not struggling to really put a lot of force. When you just go to staple like normal, you just feel like like going past a ball detent, and it just really fast and easy. And I believe they work pretty well on dynamic surfaces, such as the top of this box. Let's see here. Yeah, it does. It's not the greatest on a kind of a funky folded over surface, but you can still use it in that situation. We can see that staple is still pretty solid in there. One kind of funny thing is there's a commercial up on, there's some kind of corporate advertising video for their cordless version of these, and they were comparing their cordless one and how fast it was to seal boxes versus somebody using tape. And it was a hilarious video, because they had like the world's worst person to run a tape dispenser, and then some guy with a cordless box stapler. In reality, unless you need a cordless one, I totally recommend like going online, eBay, there's tons of these out there, and getting a manual one. You'll save a lot of money. They're actually lighter weight than the cordless ones. And if you're good with one of these, this is really fast. I mean, the amount of time that it just takes to push this handle down, it's spring loaded to release itself. You just push it down and let go, and push it down and let go. You can go pretty darn fast. And if somebody's actually good running a tape gun, they can seal a box in a fraction of a second. So the commercial is kind of hilarious, and I don't really recommend believing their hype on how much faster a cordless one would be over this. It does save you some energy operating the stapler, but for the long haul, a manual one's the way to go. So anyway, that was the end of the review for this Bostitch BoxLok cardboard box stapler. And just to show you a nice one, and because these staplers look so weird, most people don't even know really what kind of device it is. I've often seen that. I've had friends who just say, "What on earth is that?" And now you know. A weird stapler that has a big flat bottom like that would be a box stapler. Now, Bostitch has lost their patent. There's many knockoff versions. But anyway, I really appreciate everybody watching. Please subscribe. Catus Maximus out. Quick little addendum here I totally forgot about. So Bostitch, they've been bought out by Stanley, but they have special box staple removers, and that's what these things are. They're kind of funky. They do work for a variety of staples, like construction staples, heavy-duty staples that you would find in most staple guns, just not like office staples or desk staples. And I've seen a lot of people, they're using pliers, and they kind of struggle with getting the staples out, and it's kind of amazing when you have just the right tool. It's super easy to remove them, and I'll show that real quick. We'll go and get some staples in here. Well, if you go a little too fast, those tines can kind of rip stuff up, but these staple removers are just super easy. You just put it over the staple, and it just pops it right out. And when you do that, it has this little claw. It has just a little bit of a pivot so that when you have the force of the staple getting pulled up, it's really genius. This little claw comes over and there's a little notch there, so it actually traps the staple and prevents it from wanting to fall out. And it's a really genius design, and you can see how that works. There's a little gap when you put it in, and when you start lifting it up, it closes and traps the staple. So these things work really well. Anyway, just wanted to add that to this review of, let's get that box out of here, review to this Bostitch stapler. Thanks again.